let's see. Hey, Zeptimus, do you mind reading the, can you do us the favor of reading the Sampo mission?
Oh, my pleasure. The Sampo Working Group develops and grows the value of the economic layer of the token engineering commons. It aligns the microeconomy with the TEC mission and the collective success and individual benefit of its token holders.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Quick reminder that there is this text channel for our call, so you can turn that on. I've been really digging this. It's like a super nice way of being able to ask questions and like still be able to keep the flow going of the conversation. So what I thought would be a good check-in question is the following. What's your best guess, just best guess, on how long it's going to be before the TEC becomes economically self-sustainable? And I am going to throw that question first to Enti.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I think it's going to take some time. Like, I can easily see the TEC bringing in revenue probably in just a few months. I don't know if 3, 6, something like that. But economically self-sustainable, I don't know, probably more in the year and a half, or even 2. I think we should realistically expect some ups and downs before reaching that point. And I'll pass it over to Rex.
Sure, I agree with that as well. I think that it'll take us around 2 years to grow enough profits to sustain all the like fixed costs we have due to our structure. Yes, I'll pass it to Bear.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think we will see that at least year, 2 years. And I think it will depend mostly in the speed in which we do our different initiatives, and probably in the amount of people involved with them. So I guess that will affect. But yeah, I'll pass it to Gene.
Thanks, Mr. Bear. Yeah, I'm gonna be. I don't want to say pessimistic, but I think a little bit more. Project a little bit more outward that it's be even maybe along the 3 to 5 year time scale. That as we gain more ability to develop some revenue, that our scope will inevitably grow as well, and that the number of people involved will grow as well, such that we'll feel a little bit more freedom and liberty and funding new working groups and sustaining more members. But that will inevitably push out the time scale for complete sustainability. So yeah, I think it would be ideal to think along the longer, medium to longer term ratio than demanding sustainability earlier. And I will pass, I guess, back to Mr. Gideon. Is that it?
Okay, thank you. Well, actually, Zeptimus, do you want to go?
Sure. I have no idea because like there is not, when I really thought when we were deploying this, like the ABC was going to be self-sustainable, and I mean, we cannot say it's not because we didn't test it out until the end. Like it's still like live project. Like the intention is like at some point there would be so little amount in the, if everyone starts to sell because okay, this is failing, everyone's selling, and then the bonding curve was supposed to all these sellings is generating exit tribute, and then when you have like little amount of token holders, those token holders are holding the common pool, which is higher than the value of their tokens, and it creates buy pressure. So people it's incentivized to buy TC, but of course, like we are so far, like this is like before dying, I guess. But yeah, I don't want to extend so much. But what I want to say is like we don't have another idea. Like we say we're working on stuff, but like in order to say okay, this is going to take this amount of time, I first should know what's we go try what's we go building to make that possible. So yeah, back to you again. And you muted.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to capture that last note. Hey, Crypto Zach, welcome. While you're loading up here, I'll answer it, and then you can just think for a sec. The question is, what's your best guess on how long before the TEC becomes economically self-sustainable? So I'll go first. Yeah, I think it's going to be probably like a year and a half. And that's based on the assumption that we get a handle on our costs, that we bring our costs way down from where they are today. And so I think actually we may be heading into kind of a period where the TEC kind of has to contract a fair amount and really just focus on like what the core service is, like what the core value is that we're contributing to the commons, to the mission of the TEC. And then by focusing on that set of services and that set of value, we will slowly start to grow back up. And I think that that'll be like a year and a half. And we won't be completely self-sustainable, but what does that really mean? I mean, I think, I don't think that we'll be break even in terms of just like revenues or even just token utility. My guess is that we will still be relying on funders to help basically pay for the vision that we have. Crypto Zach, how about you?
Hey, I just showed up. I didn't hear the question. You're on mute.
So the question is, what's your best guess on how long before the TEC becomes economically self-sustainable?
Well, probably about a year or two. More like 2 years.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Okay, I'll try to capture my notes later. So some quick updates. The first is that our message to token holders is now up on the forum, and yeah, feel free to check it out if you haven't read that note. I wrote it, but then got a bunch of feedback from a handful of stewards, and then also got some help from Jason from the Writers Guild, and also Taxel, who's our editor in the Writers Guild. Basic plan is that it's going up in the forum, and then it's now probably tomorrow. Eduardo is going to be. Hey, Griff, welcome.
GM.
So just doing some updates, and actually before I finish that up, do you want to answer our check-in question, which is, what's your best guess on how long before the TEC becomes economically self-sustainable?
I would argue that we already are, because if people sell the token, then 12% of the sales will go to us. Right now it's 10%, or once we execute the vote, I don't know if the vote's been executed or not, it will be 10% of the sales go to us. So there's a whole bunch of money sitting there as income. And we have a token that we hold a bunch of, and we have assets. And I feel like we are sustainable. We raised all of this money, so we're in the black already. And it's kind of like we're choosing where to put the bar, right? We're choosing where to put the line, and we're putting the line at what we had at launch or where we had when Sampo started, and we say, oh, we're in the red now. But I see us as already sustainable with lots of token methodologies token economic systems to keep us sustainable. Now, when do we start like really kicking in revenue and bringing in products and those sorts of things? That kind of question. Yeah, I like the 1 year mark. I bet we'll have more revenue than like new revenue coming in as we have going out, and we'll be accumulating money in our treasuries within a year. I would imagine.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I was just giving an update on kind of what's been happening. Token holder message went out on the forum, and Eduardo is going to be doing, he's going to be himself, but then also handing it off to a few stewards, doing outreach, basically direct messages on Discord and Telegram, to just, basically do outreach to hatchers. There's this question that's come up about like how do we over time expand it from just the list of hatchers we have to include all token holders, and so that's going to be a project in and of itself, thinking about how we actually motivate token holders to actually self-identify. Hey, Mitch, welcome. And yeah, so how do we do that? How do we basically get people to actually self-identify? And like there may be like ideas about like on the convert page having some pathway there for people to actually self-identify either their Discord handles or email or whatever. But basically, I think this comes down to making it attractive, making it so that the token utility, that there's some utility there, then can be tied to not just a wallet, but maybe a Discord handle. Other updates, Bear and NT and I have been doing a lot of work on clarity and just like basically helping us to get ourselves organized. There's going to be a lot, there already is a lot of activity that's flowing through Sampo. And so in a minute, I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of some of the new features on clarity so that we all have an understanding of how we're organizing ourselves. And then we're meeting tomorrow, the first meeting of the Sampo Fund Manager. So this is basically digging into the treasury question. We've got probably, I think, 6-7 people who are interested in this, which is great. So we're going to be basically tackling a few challenges right up front. One of the biggest is going to be like basically coming up with a policy for how we want to handle treasury and do that in a safe way that doesn't put our hard-earned funds at risk, but that still generates some yield. So that's going to be tomorrow. So let me do this now. I'm going to switch over, and we're going to do a little bit of a demo on Clarity and like how. So Clarity basically just shipped a major new release last week, and Richie Bonello, who's the head of Clarity, was nice enough on Friday to kind of walk me through how to set this up in a way that will help us a lot better at tracking our project. So I'm going to show you kind of how we do that. So when you come in to Sampo, you go to the home page. This is configurable, so we can always get to like the main documents, and this will be growing over time. But like, click on this. This gets us right back to the meeting. Like these are all, just like every working group has their Google Doc page where the agendas are. This is where ours is. Just going to the top here really quickly, I'm going to come back to the roadmap in a minute. This is just all of that. So it's also a wiki and a project management solution. So this is where all of our documents are. these are the various groups we have in Sampo. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this part today because we'll talk about this in like a week or so. But basically, these are the primary workflows and kind of activity streams that we've got going on in Sampo. The analysts, it's the work that Rex and Anik have been doing, and along with Zeptimus. And so you'll see in a sec some of that. I'll use that as a sample. We'll go into the roles. This is the main thing, the roadmap. So basically what you can do is you can have milestones. So here you see this is all the stuff that we're doing in June. This is all the stuff we're doing in July, all the stuff in August. So our basically our proposal that we put up to the community and that the community agreed to fund is now in here. So you can see here, this one's pretty much done at this point. This is work with the transparency to build a real-time snapshot of the TC treasuries. Rex did that, and it looks super cool. I think we've shown that in previous meetings, and Zeptimus just agreed he's going to integrate that into the dashboard. So, I think we can pretty much count that as done. So Rex, when you get a chance, just I'll let you do the honors of coming in here and you just do the done, click done. Let's take another example of something that's like midway through. So you can see here that this is a goal. Communicate. This is one of the goals that we pledged we would do in the funding plan, communicate high-level plans to token holders. And then you can see here that this is like a project, right? The message to token holders. You can see you got feedback from stewards, got the Writers Guild to review, had Taxel doing it, and pass, and then drafted a DM summary for Discord and Telegram. Those are all done. This whole thing's done. And so now you can see anybody who wants to like come in and see what's happening with the Sampo proposal. We're really trying to maintain transparency on all the stuff we're doing. So anybody can come in and take a look at all the major projects and goals that we agreed that right here on this on the board here. And so then you can see that each one of these things will set up the Sampo org structure. We're in the middle of that. This is the treasury policy and strategy to begin earning yield, et cetera, et cetera. So you get the basic idea. Last thing I wanted to show is that each one of these groups has its own little page here. So like if you look at, let's do fund managers. So here you can see these are the various projects for the treasury management stuff, and it's all organized by the team. Same with notes. And then I'm not going to go into this today, but do you actually have the ability to do payouts through Clarity as well? So I think that's probably enough of the show and tell, but let me just take a break here for a second, see if anybody has any questions or comments or things. Nope. Okay, so we're going to be setting this up over the next couple weeks to get all of the permissions right and stuff like that, so people can be able to come in and just start contributing on project, like in a permissionless way. So that's one of our main goals. Okay, so let's talk about token utility. So this is one of the objectives that we have for as part of the Sampo funding plan. And the idea is basically how do we generate utility and demand for the TC token. And so this came up in the stewards call today, and it's something that Eduardo and I have been working on, is basically coming up with a tighter definition of what it means to be a member of the TEC. And so what we've been proposing, and this will be a formal proposal, a kind of a cultural proposal that will go to the TEC. But what we're proposing is that there's like a little checklist that would include orientation. So you've been through orientation, you've had praise activated, you've signed a community covenant on gardens, and you've done this idea of initial community offering. So the initial community offering is just this, starts off very simple. The idea is that from the community perspective, this is kind of like a gift economy. So the idea is like when you come in, you don't start off by receiving, you start off by giving. And in this case, it's just like, tell us a little bit about yourself. We might have some prompts that are like, oh, hey, we really like, hey, YGG, welcome.
Thank you, Gideon.
Yeah. So yeah, just some simple. I'm not going to go into details on this because this is less a Sampo thing. That's more of something that Communitas is working. The question that comes up though that we've been wrestling with and we put to the stewards today is: are we looking at option A or option B? So option A is basically to be a member, you have to be a TEC token holder, and option B is like, these are different things, right? You can be a TEC member and you can be a TEC token holder, and there's some people who are both. And so what I personally am advocating, I'm recommending, is A, because I think it can simplify things a lot. It also encourages people to own the token. That's good because it means that we'll have more people who are eligible to vote, right, on our conviction voting. But it's also like, I think, more of a philosophical thing of like really encouraging, even if it's just a minimal amount of holding the token, that people will have like at least a psychological stake, economic stake in the future of this organization. So I'm gonna. There's some reasons why this matters. That comes down to this question of token gates. But I'm going to pause for a second here, just to make some space in case there's questions or comments about this question. Right?
So this option A and option B, I'm guessing they're like objectives. Like we wouldn't. I don't see how we'd be able to like purely do option A, however hard we try. Or is it just like an objective of trying to get everybody involved?
So I think actually it'd be pretty straightforward. It's like in order so one way that we're looking at handling this question of membership is actually issuing an NFT, like a we don't know how frequently we would update these, but it's like an NFT that marks that you are a member of the TC. You've actually met these criteria. You've been through orientation, your praise activated, etc. And when the Communitas folks can confirm all that, and hopefully over time we'll be able to automate more. But in the beginning, it'll just be done by hand. Then
like an ERC 725, decentralized identity. For
not
the
to begin with. This would really just be more like an NFT, just a simple NFT. Like if you meet these criteria, we issue you. We'll have your wallet, and so we can issue you an NFT. It could be a POAP too. Like there are details of how we would do this, not yet determined. This is more conceptual at this point, but actually probably not that hard to do, even if it's manual to begin with. And so
what if the tokens could sell? Like you said, like I agree, like holding TC should be a requirement to be a member, but then if you got all the requirements, you get your NFT, then you sell your TC.
Yeah. It's not gonna like soulbounds aren't a thing yet, so and POAPs you can sell because they're 721s. So I'm guessing if they want to automate it. It can even be like a form. I've got some factories for 725 I did in D, and I'll join that group and contribute to that one, basically, to make them use like non-transferable tokens.
POAPs are non-transferable.
No, POAPs are transferable. POAPs are just 721s.
POAPs can be transferred if you assign them to a multisig and then pass off the multisig.
Yeah.
Or something. But for the most part, other than that, they can't really be transferred.
I have more like a question, but it's more like on the definition of member per se. Because I can see benefits for both the option A and B, but I'm not really like, I go back down to what does being a member of the TEC means, and I think that's important distinction to make. Like, I don't know, but would you like? What I'm thinking is, would you require an experienced token engineer to help to hold tokens to be a member of the commons? That's kind of my question. So like, I can see how maybe you have two tiers of membership where, I don't know, maybe contributors go for the option A, and then you have option B for another set of the community. But that's kind of the issue I'm having. Would you like, does holding TEC make you more or less a part of supposed token engineering commons?
Yeah. So, we could set that threshold to be 0.5 TEC or 0.1. I mean, I don't think it's actually, or 1, even if it was just 1 TEC, right? Like, I think it's not so much an economic hardship issue, right? There may be some logistical issues to like getting people through the TEC convert and to actually buying the token. But I don't think that this doesn't have to be an economic issue, like a accessibility issue. I guess the other thing I'll just mention about like what happens, Zeptimus's question about like what happens if somebody has the NFT but then they sell their TEC, right? So I think that as we're looking at token gating for, say, Discord, and we haven't even talked about why we would do that, but let's just hold off on that for 1 second. We could probably, what is it, ERC 1155? I can't remember what the exact, it's the one that allows you to do, like, if you hold either this token, or you could do, like, you have to hold both tokens, you can do token gating that way. So in this case, what we could do maybe is basically say, like, you have to have the TEC NFT, and then you have to be also holding some TEC token, and then you get access to this channel. But those are more logistical questions, and I think one of the things that this community is going to have to decide, this is more like a cultural question of like, what does it mean to be a member? Does that, what happens if we were to require token holding to be that, to be a member? That's really, I think, the first question.
For me, I think maybe it would be like a combination of the two options. I think for option A, I would agree that to be a member, you need to meet the criteria and also hold TEC. But then you could also be a token holder only, right? Like I would keep the option B, but then on the green circle, you could add the purple circle around it, kind of combine the two things. So then you could be like a TEC member. Yeah, so to be a TEC member, you need to hold TEC, but then you can also be just a TEC holder if you don't meet the rest of the criteria. I don't know if I'm explaining myself well.
I think so. Well, I think that is A, because in A, you can just speculate, right? Like you can be in the purple. I don't think we ever want to be in a situation where we prevent people from just holding the token and wanting to speculate that this is going to be a good bet longer term. So, but without having to do any of the kind of like become a member. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what I meant. Yeah. And then
Okay.
if, like what Septi was saying, if you sell your TEC token, then you are not a member anymore, right? Even if you meet the requirements, if you sell the token, then you are not a member.
Yeah, by this definition, yes, that's true.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Confused by what we mean by member, like is contributor member, or is the definition broader? Like, say for me, which I joined like 2 months ago. Before contributing, should I have bought in TEC tokens? I think where you want to, like for option A, it's very critical to kind of think about where this gate is going to be, because what you don't want to do is to disincentivize participation. That's yeah. Ultimately, like, yeah.
I'm not sure, but I'm thinking like, how could this be like like a live thing, so that it's always evolving. Say you start with the option B, but then we kind of like we respect members as in the option B, but the goal is always to end up in option B, in option A. I don't know if that even makes sense, but I'm really concerned. I think what Rex is saying is totally valid, and I'm also really concerned about like what does membership does even mean, like coming back again. I'm sure, I don't, let's say Michael Sargam, I'm sure he holds some TEC, but even if he didn't, wouldn't he be considered like a proper member of the token engineering community, which is supposedly the people we try to represent and work for? And so like, is he I don't like, does he must hold TEC to be able to consider himself a part of the token engineering community? I think that's sort of my question. So
Yeah. There's actually two related questions there. Like one is with Michael Zargam. I love it's like there's a Zargam test, like on a lot of these things. It's fairly interesting. Is like, would we require him to kind of go back and like do orientation and do an initial community offering? No, I don't think so. Busy, like there are a bunch of people who are busy and have obviously contributed. So we'll need some kind of like process for dealing with people who've already been through this, right? We can't be like sticklers and say like, oh, you need, like that's counterproductive. And then there's this other question that in some ways is even harder, which is like, would we dissuade a token engineer from participating in the TEC by requiring token holding? But I just feel like the answer is yes, we would. I mean, if we're serious about driving the utility of this token up, then at some point we have to take a stand and say there's a difference between holding this token and not holding. That's my personal view. But and I don't think it has to be thousands of TEC. It could be a small amount. Let's talk for a minute about how we might even use this. One of the ideas that's floating around right now is the idea that we might have to start, even just in Discord, some channels that had like some extra things going on, special conversations and things that we'd have everything that we have today, but that we might have like some special maybe interviews. Griff, it might be like you interviewing some of the like people who got the TEC started, might be some, YGG, it might be like some like insights on modeling. I don't know yet what it would be, but the idea would be having some sort of token gate to getting access to these kind of premium channels.
That makes sense. So yeah, in that case, the token gate is at if you want to extract value, not if you want to put in value. Like those, say, for all of those people which are kind of maybe getting salaries or getting bounties or anything to that extent, you need to have tokens, and you need to be a part of the ecosystem and actually kind of, I don't know, invest some money. I don't know. Something like that.
Sounds like a Ponzi, investing money just to be in. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe not that, but having a stake anyway, beyond extracting dye from the common pools.
Yeah, I mean, the other way of looking at this, and Mitch, actually, it'd be interesting to hear your take on this, is that maybe as part of the onboarding process, when people get oriented, they're praised, and so they automatically get TEC once they've they're participating in the praise process.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's correct.
Yeah.
like
I think
a pseudo faucet, like a TEC faucet kind of thing, but that we operate it rather than people.
So if you just give out TEC tokens, how does that promote its like utility? Like if you can just get them automatically, like why would people want to have more of them?
Yeah, I think that it wouldn't be automatically. It would be like if you meet these criteria of the having been onboarded, you've signed a covenant, you get a minimal amount. You wouldn't get like hundreds of TEC. You get like one TEC, like the minimal amount that we would require
Yeah.
to be a
But
member.
what do you want? Do you want to give them away or do you want people to buy them?
But
Like
isn't this already happening? Well, I mean, doesn't anyone, whenever Edu gets people through orientation, he dishes them praise and they get a little bit of TC?
Yeah, assuming that the quantifier. Yes, pretty much yes.
I think it would be interesting to have someone from a community that successfully implemented token gating. I'm thinking about Bangladesh right now to sort of walk us through why does it work for them? Because I think, for example, as far as I know, Bangladesh DAO has different tiers of membership, so you have to buy different amounts of tokens, and so maybe there's a way we can replicate something like that where you get like the most basic membership and access to like I don't know a general or introductory member chat, but then if you want to go deeper, you have to buy a few more. That's one thing, and the other thing I think it's actually pretty smart. Like thinking about granting membership with praise, because you also have a buffer of I think it's 2 weeks before you actually receive the TC token, in which like in that time that could be used to further I don't know in the design of the process of onboarding. That's time that could be used to prepare the people before they actually get the token.
Okay. This is really good. Thank you. I think what we're going to do is Eduardo and Livia are going to be talking about this in SoftGov, and I'll be joining them too, and we'll put together some proposal here. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opinions, I guarantee. But I think it's important to make progress on this, because if we really want to do any kind of token gating, we've got to figure out what it means. Do we just do that with the TEC token, or do we layer in some other kind of like cultural mechanism, which is kind of what we're using the NFT for, proxy for, like the cultural entry into the.
And I just want to correct something I said. Rex is absolutely right about POAPs being NFTs and transferable. I was totally wrong there.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I wanted to say something, but I just forgot. It will come back.
No, except you go on first.
No, I just don't remember what they wanted to say. What was the feedback?
Okay. One more thing I would say on this is that whatever we do decide to do, I'm like a newbie, so I shouldn't be like the one putting this out. But we shouldn't stray away from the vision of like being a non-hierarchical community. Like we're trying to be a commons, not some. And from my understanding, like the objective has always been to kind of have a pretty flat structure. So token gating, we are creating some sort of pyramid. So whatever we do, I don't think that, like, I think it should be either extremely easy, or that whatever we're token gating isn't crucial to like active participation and isn't a barrier. And it doesn't give you like massive special privileges either. Like service is a great idea. It's like the ones you talking about, but nothing that kind of gives you status above others in like holding massive amounts.
Yeah. So there's a great article that Michael Zargam and Kelsey Nabin wrote a few months ago, or actually last year, about permissionless DAOs. And I did a riff on it about membership. And basically, I think that this comes down to the question of, as long as the protocols are clear and they're open and anybody can access them, then I think that we're good. The minute we start like only allowing certain people to access these things and not others, or we hide these things if they're not public, then we start running into problems. But my contention is that if we make these protocols open, just like any protocols on the blockchain, if it's accessible to everybody, I think that that's fair. As long as, like, I don't think this is about, I think it's fair to ask people to do some work in order to get into something. That's like the nature of the blockchain. Proof of work, right? But I think if we start like being secretive about it, or we're not like really transparent, then we start running into problems. Okay, we will come back to this in future weeks as we hone this some more. I want to turn this over to YGG at this point to talk about. A couple of weeks ago, we were exploring this idea of like, are there some things that we might be able to do with modeling to answer some of the questions that we have here in Sampo? And so he and I were kind of going back and forth on this, and we thought, well, maybe we'll just open it up to the group. YGG, can I just turn it over to you for this part?
Yeah, thanks, Gideon. I really wanted to give a demo of a few modeling examples that I think are very relatable. I've been struggling to get my Python environment set up. Every once in a while, bleeding edge software, there's a new release and things just don't work. So a lot of this modeling I have is just, it's not rendering. I use a cool library I use a stack of libraries in Python where you can render models in Jupyter, and just nothing's rendering right now. So I think I'll skip the demo for today, and just like Gideon said, we can have an open discussion about how we might want to apply modeling to the general concepts around the Sampo working group. So for any of you that have participated in the labs, I really enjoy sort of leading an interactive development environment where often I'm coding myself and I encourage other people to follow along and have their screen shares going as well and have their workflow environments up. Jupyter Lab, I like to work in Jupyter Lab. It's kind of the standard data science environment. And we can just start to plug away at conceptualizing anything that we want to be considering in terms of, for example, the treasury management. One of the demos I was going to give today is I've been doing this discounted cash flow modeling, so you can just modulate sort of the interest rate and things like annuities. So we could model, let's say every steward is paid $500 per month or wrapped XDI. We can plot out, how long does that give us given the current treasury? Just these kinds of, we can start to ask questions and visualize what different scenarios might look like. And the key to this is usually isolating the parameters. So everyone knows the famous param parties that led us to where we're at today. So we want to get to a point where we understand the knobs and dials and switches and buttons that we have access to. What are all the decisions we can make? And what kind of insights can we get on the implications of those decisions? So if we change the structure of how stewards are compensated, if we change the structure of onboarding stewards to the community, anything you can quantify and get a numerical handle on, we can begin to model that and begin to expose the parameters. And modeling doesn't give all the answers, but it's a very powerful thinking tool to sit down with sort of a blank canvas and say, what do we want to look at in the system? What can we numerically identify? What are the parameters of our environment? And what's changing over time? And what might be the relationship of change from day to day or from block to block or month to month? Yeah, that's the general concept of modeling. I'm very comfortable in the Python environment and using the data science tool stack, and happy to bring people along that journey and help people sort of learn to code in Python and that kind of stuff. But there's, a lot of people don't use Python and just do this in Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets, and I have a lot of respect for that. I think that's really cool. There are some advanced tools that we can use like CAD. So CAD is advanced, but it's kind of simple at the same time. Its purpose is to almost like bring simplicity into complexity. So it gives you a standard framework where you basically identify all the metrics of your system, whatever you can measure over time. It might be the amount of wrapped XDI in our treasury, for example. And then you just have to define programmatically how things change. So they might say, okay, well, our treasury changes when we give out proposals or when we pay, stewards. So CAD is that kind of framework where you just identify the numerics and then you identify the relationships of change, and then you kind of hit run, and it runs the simulation, and you can see how things change over time. So yeah, and that's sort of an introduction. I did have a demo I was hoping to give, but the new releases of these libraries, things aren't just rendering right now. And with that, I think I'd like to open it up to a general discussion. Maybe we can take notes on any ideas that people would like, anything that people would like to see modeled, or any meta aspects of approaching this in the first place.
I definitely have something to model, but it's going to be a little harder than like that, but basically the trade volume for optimal tributes amounts, this has been requested since before we even launched, and it would be really valuable to figure out some, optimal tribute setting strategies.
Cool. I'm taking notes, by the way.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that, Griff. That makes so. Yeah, I don't know exactly off the bat. I mean, first we would model the mechanism itself. So we have a bonding curve mechanism model, which we could grab, and then we could just.
There's the Uniswaps. There's various Uniswap models too to kind of like play
Right.
with.
Yeah, and then maybe we model a population. So you just start with, let's say there's 100 people, and each one has a chance of minting or burning tech on the bonding curve.
Yeah, I mean,
mhm.
if I had to start the model, I'd start with what has happened,
Mhm.
and like even though obviously by changing the tributes you would change what would happen, but let's just say that every mint, every burn, and every buy on HoneySwap happened, was guaranteed to happen no matter what the tributes were. What would have been
Mhm.
what would have been the optimal tribute setting? And that, I think, well, I mean, that won't really perfectly work because it'd be like, 100% both sides. So maybe if there could be some kind of way to meter that, or maybe it's like, the tribute, exit tribute plus entry tribute has to equal whatever the setting was for that period, or it has to equal 12 or 14%.
Yeah, this is a great case because we have real data. We have all the real tributes, all the trades that have happened. We can get that data, and then we could answer those questions. What would it have looked like if we applied this tribute rate? And then also algorithmically, so we could say, what happened if during these periods where the volume was extremely high, we had raised the tribute amount? And we could even come up with some relationships, like as you increase the tribute amount, you could say people are going to be less likely to want to mint and burn on the bonding curve, and we could just define some sort of non-linear relationship, like a resistance factor.
Hey guys, I'm going to jump in and just suggest that so that one sounds really interesting, and there's a lot of, so let's table that one and then maybe do the details on it. I have one other one, but I think it's a lot fuzzier than that one. So that one seems like probably a more likely short-term thing. The one that I can't just let go of for some reason is, like, I keep coming back to startups. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but like startups, the way that they deal with this question of constrained budgets for cash is by offering equity. And our token is not the same as equity, but I'm wondering, if there's some way that we could, conserve our XDAI by, offering some type of incentives for people to hold TEC as payment, and what that modeling.
I like this one. Like you said, it's fuzzy, but fuzzy can actually be a good thing, because this could be a case for modeling where we don't even need to start with the code. We don't need a Python environment. You can model with words. You can write out scenarios, and it's almost like a philosophical approach. You can write out scenarios and try to do the absolute best job to pull apart the details and just mentally probe different scenarios and see how well defined you can get on what the system looks like, what's being applied, and what the changes or outcomes might be. And I would love to invite people into the modeling mindset who aren't coders, who just, because we can do a lot in a HackMD file or even a Google Doc. And sometimes when you do a lot of work in sort of the prose and the narrative construction, then you can get the quantified aspect of the system down to being very precise and very simple. And then if you want to go into the coding environment, it's like a few lines of code, and you can check out this one little piece that you've identified. So yeah, I think this would be a good collaboration between modelers and people who wouldn't consider themselves modelers but are down to just explore the idea deeper and produce like a report or something.
YGG, is there like a particular date where you're going to do this? Honestly, this to me sounds more interesting than like, are we going to give funds away to other people to invest it? I'd rather do like this. I'd rather join you and kind of ditch that one. Not to say that it's not.
Let me, because we have 1 minute left. Let me do this. Let's just ask if there are people who are interested in this. Can you just? I'm going to take some notes here. Who's interested in following up with YGG on this?
Very interested.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm extremely interested as well on this one.
Count me in the group. I may not be able to attend actively, but I definitely want to watch.
Same.
At least not until the summer's over.
NT, were you flashing your mic there?
Yeah. Same as Grief, pretty much.
Okay. Okay, and okay. So anybody else before we wrap up? And feel free. I mean, did somebody just say something?
Yeah, feel free to message me or Gideon or post in the Sampo channel.
Awesome. YGG, thank you. Thanks so much for leading that. And so next week, there'll probably be some other things, but one thing for sure is I and probably Tam will give an update on what's happening with the consulting intake process. So we had a really good session with Jeff Emmett day before yesterday, I don't remember. And making some progress. We're trying to move really quickly on this one to get this one. So we'll have an update on that. We'll have met with the Treasury crew tomorrow, and so we'll have some update on what's happening there. And then, as always, if you want something to be added next week, just feel free to come in this agenda and add it. Okay, that's it, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Gideon.
Thanks, Gideon.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.